The spring 2021 anime season has just as many great shows as there were in the winter season. The only difference is that most of these shows are new instead of being sequels. I'm going to spend up to 1 minute max on each show airing this season and tell you if it's something you should watch and not skip out on, if it's worth a try but not necessarily something you have to get around to seeing, or if you should just skip entirely. Although that option is rarely going to be used since I only pick shows that I'll hopefully enjoy. Timestamps are in the description if you want to skip to a particular series that interests you. Let's be honest, whether you like it or not, everyone is going to be watching My Hero, so there's no point in putting a rating on it. I do think it's pretty funny that the most popular comments I read about Season 5 were a variation of "wait till Season 6. I think it highlights My Hero Academia's biggest problem for me, which is its inconsistency. That's not to say that what they're doing in Season 5 right now is bad, but it just pales in comparison to other arcs we've seen throughout the series. MHA struggles to transition from big arcs to smaller ones and make those arcs just as important and functional to the overall story. Regardless, I always have a fun time with My Hero, and people are saying that the second half of Season 5 really picks things up, so we'll just have to wait and see if that's true. I honestly thought Horimiya got pretty spicy when they showed that bite mark on the back of Miyamura's neck, and then episode 3 of Higehiro came out like f***ing Danny DeVito. On a more serious note, that scene was pretty hard to watch. In case anyone doesn't know what it's about, the show's premise revolves around Yoshida, a 27-year-old office worker who drunkenly stumbles upon a runaway high school girl named Sayu, who offers to have sex with him if she can stay at his place. Seeing how Sayu resorts immediately to offering herself up in order to get a place to stay, and how Yoshida deals with it responsibly was surprisingly great. The show likes to explore the ins and outs of this very odd relationship, and I hope it stays that way. Through this relationship, both Sayu and Yoshida are learning things about themselves that they never even knew, and find each other's presence comforting. I have a few issues though. People who've read the light novels say this doesn't happen, but the series looks like it might end up devolving into a harem. Also, Yoshida sometimes feels a bit too dense at times, considering he says some pretty thoughtful and insightful things to Sayu. That being said, I think Higehiro is worth a try, but it's not a must-watch. I was honestly really surprised by Nagatoro and liked it a lot more than I thought I would. It's exactly like Takagi-san, but just lewd, and Nagatoro herself is less wholesome and more of a sadist who can take it too far. The most unexpected thing about the show was the high-quality animation that it shows off and the insane facial expressions. It feels like the studio is making the most of the material they have to work with. The formula is simple and not everyone is going to be on board with it, but it's entertaining to me, at least for right now. I hope there's a nice bit of progression between Nagatoro and her senpai, otherwise I can see the show becoming stale pretty quick. Despite the controversial lewdness of the show, I still think anyone should give it a try if they're on the fence about it. Vivy is the best anime that is airing this season. Combining Wit Studio's great art and animation with Eiji Umehara and Tappei Nagatsuki's writing, it's living up to its maximum potential. I made a short video that goes into detail on the first 2 episodes if you want to check that out. But for those who don't know, Vivy is basically a sci-fi version of Violet Evergarden with a heavier emphasis and focus on the plot. It takes place in a future where AIs coexist with humanity, but end up evolving to the point where they decide humanity is no longer needed. And it's up to an AI who was sent from 100 years in the future named Matsumoto to team up with the first autonomous AI to be made, Diva, and make sure that AIs don't end up slaughtering humanity. Even though there's an overarching plot, the show takes a more episodic approach which works to add more layers onto Diva's character. Overall, Vivy is a complete package with great visuals and music, backed by a compelling narrative and great characters, and is a must-watch in my opinion. I was definitely not the biggest fan of the first season of Demon Lord, and I don't think season 2 is going to change my mind. I know quite a lot of people enjoy watching it as a guilty pleasure, but it's just something I'm not willing to waste time on to see if it gets better. This is the only show I'm willingly skipping out on for the season, and the only reason I ended up watching the first episode was to confirm that this was real. Slime 300 was the show that surprised me the most out of anything this season, but that's not to say that I think it's going to be the best anime of the season. A woman named Azusa ends up getting isekai'd from overworking herself and wishes for a calm, eternal life where she reincarnates as a witch. At the end of the day, the show is about cute girls doing cute things, and Azusa steadily becoming OP after 300 years doesn't get in the way of enjoying the show for what it is. Instead of being an OP character who collects girls for their harem, Azusa unintentionally collects family members to make her eternal life a bit more lively and wholesome. It really gave off Dragon Maid vibes for me, even though the show doesn't have that level of production on display. Don't go in expecting deep character arcs or a complex plot. It's a nice slice of life fantasy that just uses an isekai plot to kick things off. I almost want to make it a must-watch because I enjoy it so much, but this isn't everyone's thing, so I'll just keep it at being worth a try. Tokyo Revengers has quite a lot of hype behind it from manga readers, and I do think it has great potential for the future. After his middle school girlfriend Hinata ends up getting isekai'd, our main character Takemichi ends up feeling more hopeless than ever before, as the one source of happiness he had before his life went spiraling downward is now gone. Maybe he's upset because he wanted to be the one who gets isekai'd instead, but that wish ends up being granted when he's pushed into the direct path of a train. However, he ends up going back in time instead, and after being comforted by his girlfriend, he experiences both happiness and a warmth he hadn't felt in 12 years. And this gives him the resolve he needs in order to enter and rise through the ranks of the Tokyo Manji gang, the ones who are responsible for Hinata's death 12 years later. I think the comparisons that people have been making to Erased are warranted. However, Tokyo Revengers is a shonen that has a much different tone and plans on tackling different themes. Whereas Erased places more focus on the mystery and Kaio's character, Tokyo Revengers feels much more character focused and has a narrative that appears to be driven by heart and willpower. I think it's a show everyone should be watching, as long as it has a better ending. 86 was one of my most anticipated series of the season because of the high praise the light novel received, along with Hiroyuki Sawano creating the soundtrack. 86 takes place in the utopian republic of San Magnolia, who has been at war with an army of autonomous AI drones known as the Legion. But unknowingly, many have had the wool pulled over their eyes on how the Republic combats the Legion using actual people, rather than their own autonomous drones. This group of people reside in an unlisted 86th district that was separated from the other 85 that were formed prior to the war. 86 moves at a fast pace, but does a good job of building its world and slowly unveiling the harsh realities presented to those within the 86th district. Lena is our main character, who is the only one who appears to not dehumanize the 86 and wants to do whatever she can to assist them. But her resolve is tested when she gets paired to be a handler with the Spearhead Squadron, led by the Undertaker. 86 is well-rounded with multiple heavy complex themes that it's going to tackle, great mech battles, emotional tension, and an amazing soundtrack which makes it a must-watch. I never watched Gridman, but because of a lot of the popularity and hype it garnered back when it aired, I wanted to give Dynazenon a shot. After 3 episodes, I just see it as a relatively fun popcorn action series that has some mysteries it has yet to unveil to us. The plot so far can just be summed up as random Chuni who actually is a kaiju user teams up with a bunch of randoms to fight other kaiju. It really is that simple, so far. I really don't have much to say about what Dynazenon might be going for, and maybe some of that has to do with me not watching Gridman. Trigger are just doing their typical thing of making crazy over-the-top action while slowly piecing together a narrative. I honestly can't say I'm too invested in the show as of right now, and I honestly was thinking of dropping it due to the amount of series I'm keeping up with and picking it back up later. But it is at least worth a try if you're interested. Definitely not a priority for me though. I don't think anyone expected a sequel to Megalobox since it had a pretty well-rounded conclusion, but I'm really glad the second season happened because I'm much more invested in this season than I was at the start of the first one. I enjoyed Megalobox Season 1 quite a bit, but I did kind of fall off with it in the middle. However, I do think that Season 2 has the potential to surpass the first pretty easily. Season 2 takes a much more harsh and tragic tone as Joe has fallen from the very top of the boxing world for reasons I won't spoil, and now goes by the moniker Nomad. He wanders to underground boxing rings in order to make money and has developed both a drug and alcohol addiction in order to keep his mental scars from haunting him. He's hit rock bottom and is on the verge of completely breaking when he runs into a boxer named Chief, who looked up to Joe in his prime. And through this chance meeting is where Joe begins a battle that is tougher than any boxing match he ever had. Also, this season uses quite a bit of Spanish, which I haven't seen in any anime since Bleach. Never been prouder of being fluent than when I heard the ED, which was entirely sung in Spanish. Season 2 of Megalobox is 100% a must-watch. And last but certainly not least is To Your Eternity. Even though I put Vivy ahead of it, To Your Eternity had the best premiere episode of any anime this entire season, and I definitely think it's a must-watch. The first episode really felt like a short film with the way it was presented. This was many people's most anticipated series, and it definitely lived up to the hype. It's a rare series with a premise that feels unique from anything you see nowadays. I'm interested to see how it develops over time and how quickly it'll learn how to operate more like a basic human being. I'm not expecting it to develop emotion and morals anytime soon, so I'm wondering what kinds of situations the series will use in order to make the story engaging. The structure feels like it's leaning towards being more episodic for now, which feels more appropriate for the show. But over time, I think the show will start to have longer arcs as it evolves more and more and finds things and people that it may care for later on. To Your Eternity is a risky show that can quickly lose steam if not handled properly, but if there's anyone to trust with this story, then Yoshitoki Oima is an amazing choice. Of course, there are other sequels that are airing like Zombieland Saga and Fruits Basket, but I haven't gotten around to watching those shows yet. Same with other new series like Mars Red and Shadow's House, although I would put a tread with caution rating on Shadow's House as it's being done by Cloverworks. I've only seen one episode of Odd Taxi, Backflip, and Pretty Boy Detective Club, but didn't feel like I had enough info to give it a whole section in the video. But I would say they're all worth looking into. If you don't exactly have that much time to spare, then I think the 3 new shows you should prioritize are Vivy, To Your Eternity, and 86. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let me know what you guys are most looking forward to watching this season down in the comments. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.